for a court of law, have you, sign your statement, sort of like they did back in 2001, said people were willing to swear in court, right, when they took the Disclosure Project with Dr. Stephen Greer to the press club, right, over in D.C. But what I'm saying here, Steve, is apparently you've been around people and gone to conferences, which I have not. I've only been involved back in the day, Eco Expo, Whole Life, where I met one of Tommy's friends. Well, I won't mention any names right now, but anyway, a lot of us that have been with my friends have worked in groups, but they weren't UFO related. But what I seem to be hearing from you, and I already know Janet thinks she may have met you in California, maybe
we've met at some
Clara
point. I don't remember where it was, but yeah, I'm sure we've met. I think
she does. Janet, where were
at one point.
Booth. Well, I don't remember exactly. I know, Steve, that you have your booth at lots of events. You've had a booth or something.
Yeah, I used to have a booth at the UFO Congress, and I'm going to be doing the booth again at the UFO Con in Laughlin in March. And people sometimes make appointments and come over for scans too. And I scan them with the UV light, Gauss meter, Geiger counter, stud finder, and a body temperature scan because experiencers usually have lower than normal body temperature, and a radio frequency detector to see if the implant, if any, is giving off radio signals.
That's interesting. Me and my daughter are both experiencers, and mine's always been below 98, and so is hers. I find that that was an interesting point. I didn't know that.
That's a big
that
giveaway.
Was a common. Well, since I haven't gone to these UFO conferences, never attended one in my life, apparently a lot of these people know each other because they go to conferences or vendors or speakers.
Yeah.
And
right.
A little different from my group. I know people that were bona fide or investigators, or like Stanton Friedman, Richard Dolan, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, Ph.D., and then Daryl Sims, and even Nick Pope was in my radar, but very, very few. Now, I did not know about Dr. Michael Sala, Australia, and his interest, but now he is categorized with the Corey Goode story and William Tompkins, and they call it the Solar War.
Most of those people you mentioned have gone to conferences at one point or another.
Okay. Solar Warden.
Say that again?
They said the Solar Warden.
No.
You're talking to Janet.
Yeah, Steve, what did you say? I'm sorry. You guys
I said most of the people that she mentioned have been at conferences at one point or another. Daryl Sims and Richard Dolan and all those guys.
Yeah, Dr. Bruce Maccabee just put out a book with Richard. He had told me he was going to let Richard publish him because I was publishing myself, but I quit publishing for other people. And trying to focus on reality and where we can go with all this in the future at the same time, because I, like you, have had interesting experience in uniform and out. Now, you weren't any prior military, right? All this is, you feel like, is memories or physical abductions with memories. Tell us where you're getting all this data, because it sounds like firsthand information, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. But for those listening, they could get it misconstrued. So all of this, and then how much of the conference does entail cross-pollinating the data or the information from third parties?
I'm not repeating anything I heard from a third party. If I repeat something from a third party, I'll say so that it came from a third party. If not, then it's from my own experiences. But
okay. So going to these, how long have you been going to these UFO conferences?
Since 2008. The first one I went to is the Central Coast UFO Symposium, which was a pretty good conference. And I figured that since I was involved with alien experiences, that I should learn as much as possible about them. And I'd read Bud Hopkins' books and a few other things about UFOs prior to that, but I was still pretty much on the steep part of the learning curve when I started going to conferences. But going to the UFO Congress was very informative. That was definitely money well spent. Met a lot of people. My first UFO conference or second UFO conference, this guy John Rao that used to run the conference gave me some samples from of UFO crash debris or alleged UFO crash debris from the San Augustine, New Mexico UFO crash that I got to analyze, and that analysis is probably still up on Art Campbell's website if people want to check it out. And
did you share anything with Daryl Sims or Dr. Roger Leir with that, or was he already passed, Dr. Roger Leir? When did he pass?
Dr. Leir passed in March of 2014.
Okay, so was any of that with the team or with Dr. Roger Leir? Is this on your own accord, your first-hand gathering, and if you know what I mean, you're doing your own
those samples I analyzed with the equipment I had available at work, and also one test, trace element analysis test that we couldn't do there. Open Minds paid for the testing, and I sent them out to have those done. And it was pretty interesting stuff.
Let's talk about nanotechnology. What do you know about that?
Well, nanotechnology is basically the study of substances that have particles in them that are smaller than 1 micron, or generally smaller than 100 nanometers. That's when quantum effects come into play, and there's a lot of changes in the properties of the substances when you have particles of that substance smaller than 100 nanometers or so, and a nanometer being 1 billionth of a meter. That's and like a bacterial cells, large bacterial cell would be about a micron across, and so we're talking 1,000th the size of 1 nanometer being 1,000th the size of a large bacterial cell. Pretty small. Excuse me. And nanotechnology is important because you can, at least in theory, make very small electronics or very small mechanical devices with the right substances and the right particle sizes. And this is stuff that we're just experimenting with in earthly science right now, but it appears to be old technology to the aliens, like the electronics in these alien implants appears to be single wall carbon nanotube networks that are actually embedded in the metal. And I saw evidence of that in some of the San Augustine crash debris, and it was definitely that way in a piece of an alien sphere that crashed in Mexico that Jaime Maussan gave me a piece of one time and analyzed that too. And that was quite interesting. It seemed like the electronics and propulsion and everything were built right into the metal. And in experiences, I remember that a lot of these craft have no doors. The metal just opens up. So there must be nanotech actuators and powered built right in. It's very interesting stuff. And furniture can come right out of the deck and form itself. Like you push a button and it just comes up, and you're done with it, it goes back in, and stuff like that.
Are you familiar with the buckyball?
Yes.
Honeycomb?
C60. Yeah, C60 buckyballs are very important. Yeah,
I'm very impressed so far.
Thank you.
Wow, I had no idea, folks. I had no idea. Go ahead.
Go ahead. The term, explain that to our listeners, right?
A buckyball. Well, first of all, I'll start with carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes are tiny cylinders of carbon. The most stable form of carbon is graphite, and that's a bunch of layers of two-dimensional arrays of carbon atoms that are arranged in like a chicken wire pattern, hexagonal chicken wire type of pattern. And they are held together by strong van der Waals interactions, and they're hard to get apart. But if you did get one layer of graphite on its own and separate, and rolled it up into a tube, that would be a carbon nanotube. And you can have various diameters and various angles of the rolling, and the diameter and the angle determines whether that tube is metallic or semiconducting. The metallic tubes are extremely conductive, and they're the next best thing to a superconductor. There's no resistance measured except contact resistance, and those could be used for electronic wires and could transmit electricity with very little loss. And the semiconducting tubes could be used to make diodes and transistors that are much smaller than the ones that we use in silicon today, and be much more durable, much more resistant to heat, etc. And on the fullerenes, if you took, there's like at the end of a carbon nanotube, there's a dome of carbon atoms that closes it off when it's first synthesized. And if you took two of those domes and hooked them together, you'd have like a buckyball. And the most common type of buckyball is C60. It's an array of 60 carbon atoms arranged roughly in a sphere, and then the pattern is like that on a soccer ball. If you took a soccer ball type of pattern, you put a carbon atom at each corner of the lines on a soccer ball, that's what it would look like. And you can do strange things like interesting things like put metal atoms inside to change their properties. You can do the same thing with carbon nanotubes too, for that matter. I have a patent on that one, by the way. And
wow, how many patents do you own?
I don't own them, but I mean, my name's on 6 or 7. I wish I did own them, but the law says that the inventor can use them, so I might take them up on that someday. And buckyballs, one interesting thing about them is that they just found out that they double or triple the lifespan of rats, so it might be something that can increase human lifespan as well, and it might indeed
be
something. Was
that the Buckminster fullerene, or the fullerene family, or is it strictly the combination C60 of the buckyball?
If you take C60 and dissolve it in olive oil, it's fat soluble. If you dissolve it in olive oil and feed it to rats, it at least doubles their lifespan. They found that out in toxicological testing on that. And
are they working in the telomere area of human yet, or are we allowed to talk about that? I don't know. How much are you into alien technology?
I'm not sure.
I don't know what we're allowed or not allowed to say right now.
Telomeres are a hot topic of research too, in longevity, and it's not known how the buckyball solution works to lengthen the lifespan of animals, but it's quite likely they work by lengthening the telomeres. There's an enzyme called telomerase that gene is turned off in the adult in most animals, and if you could turn it on again with some substance, perhaps buckyballs, then you'd lengthen the telomeres, and the longer the telomeres, the longer your lifespan, because the telomeres are the ends of the chromosomes. It's repetitive DNA at the end of each chromosome, and when the DNA is replicated, the DNA replication enzyme has to go past the coding DNA onto the end of the chromosome. And if the end of the chromosome is not long enough, then the enzyme won't have enough space to duplicate the coding DNA, and then you're going to lose some, and then the cell then can die. So the length of your telomere determines your maximum lifespan. It's going to get shorter and shorter every time the cell divides. And it appears likely now that all it would take is a slight genetic alteration, or eating substances, ingesting substances that turn on this gene that makes this enzyme telomerase, to give people a much longer or indefinite lifespan.
Okay. Wow. Well, this is a lot of data. Anybody out there data mining or intelligence, this is an awesome show. I'm even impressed, and I'm on it. Wow. Well, good for you. 660 benefits, folks. Look in your C60. It's grabbed the attention of a lot of natural health people out there, and the Basic Beatty Rat Study published in 2012. So that's research if you're into all that. And there's C60 in Canada. Are they allowed to sell it on Amazon or not?
Yes.
I
bought it online before, and they can also potentially be used as like like nano bearings for nano machines and all kinds of carbon nanotubes are also the strongest known material, so they're probably going to be used for a lot of nano stuff